Um, Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. So we're talking about member data. This is, I feel like, always a relatively hot topic for associations because it can be a little bit tricky. Um, as always, I have some discussion questions if people don't have anything top of mind that they want to talk about, but I'd like to open it up to you all. What's top of mind for you right now when it comes to like keeping member data current? What issues are you struggling with? Who wants to kick it off?
I can kick things off just because I'm actively building out an onboarding campaign in PropFuel. One of the
Nice.
check-ins um, is planning to be asking people to update their member profile. So I guess my question is for that is at what point in the membership cycle have people found that's been beneficial to get that info? Like not too, I guess specifically for new members, but renewing members as well, like not too soon after starting or not too close to renewal. Like if there's a sweet spot you found, number one, if there's any incentives that have helped between gift cards, raffles, other things to get people to do that. And then just I guess related to that, just ways that you've been able to actually track who's actually gone in and made those updates you were wanting to. If there's a good way to do that, we use Nimble as our AMS. That matters to anyone, but yeah, that all those questions are top of mind right now as we're building out our onboarding campaign.
Love it. Okay, so it sounds like there's a couple of questions in there. So the first is the timing of which you guys request profile updates. Chad, is the member application, is that like condensed? Meaning, are there certain things that you don't really catch just so you can get people in the door faster?
Yeah, we recently tried to slim down that whole process just for a
Okay.
sort of UX reasons. Yeah, and also I don't know exactly which fields were either removed or yeah, made not required for that. But yeah, I don't know. We're not capturing quite as much, so there probably are a few things that we could get or would like to get, as follow-ups.
hmm so for that first question, when are, I guess actually taking it back a step, are people doing profile update campaigns? Like, are you guys reaching out to members to ask them to update their profiles?
So we
Mark's like,
require them
kind of.
to we require them to review it when they renew.
Okay.
And I am like minutes away from pulling the trigger on my first Prop Fuel new member onboarding, and I actually removed that question about updates because I don't know if any of you are in YM, but I feel like as soon as they go to try to update, they're going to get lost, they're going to get frustrated, they're going to be texting us for help, and I actually removed it for fear that I'd be throwing the member down a rabbit hole with a pit of snakes. So we're actually not even doing it.
Jeff, I've
So,
taken two organizations out of YM if you ever want to talk.
Yeah, I know. I have about 2 years of shackles left before we can look. And there are
Hang
worse
in there.
platforms. My last one was even worse, but the other platform,
What
yeah.
is YM, ladies and gentlemen?
Your
Your
membership.
your
membership,
membership,
Got it. Thank you.
yeah,
one of
Okay.
that's the name of
one
it.
I'm
of the
unfamiliar.
most outdated platforms.
Hmm.
I am also currently in YM, and this was our last year was our first year doing the member profile update campaign. We kept it and added this year how-to videos that our marketing team kind of put together so that they don't get lost because we found the same thing. It's where do I go to do this? How do I put it on the screen? That kind of thing.
Hmm.
So we added the link to the how-to videos in the campaign. We've gotten some pretty good feedback so far, but they do also have that same access when they renew. So they'll also get the how-to videos when they renew too.
Um, Jeff, I just made a note for you in the chat, but you shouldn't have to in PropFuel. you can write back information to YM, which means you don't have to ask the member to log in and navigate the profile on their own. You can just take them to a PropFuel landing page, and that information will tie into, it'll write back to fields in your membership. So if it's something that you want to keep in that as a test, that probably wouldn't hurt. But
Yeah,
okay, so
I have a question. I'm sorry. I have a question
oh no,
for
go.
Alexis. Since you mentioned you guys started this new process, I know Chad mentioned something about tracking. Have you been able to track that yet to see how successful it has been versus what you were doing before at all?
Yes, and so what we were doing before was barely anything. So we've seen some success from just
Perfect.
asking the question. Before we were relying on the organization contact, unless we're a mixed membership association. So we were kind of relying on that organization contact to update everyone.
Mhm.
So it helped just to take it out of that one person's hand and put it into the actual member's hand. So because we were doing so little before with our those types, we have seen some success.
Great. Thank you.
and Brittany, to your point, at some point we're going to do a campaign and ask them to update their alternate email if they don't have one. And I realize that we could just make right back. But if we wanted to show them their screen and say update, anything that's changed, then we got to send them into the pit of snakes.
Okay. Oof. The
Jeff,
pit of
I'll
snakes.
add, like, we've actually segmented this out and we've only been doing it in the past year, but you might consider like ask them 3 questions every quarter. And that's been much more appealing for a lot of our people because, it's like take 5 minutes and tell us if your job title has changed and your professional
Mhm.
category. Because we're a professional organization, or like take 5 minutes and let us know if you've received a new degree since you joined. Um, and that has a lot of people have found that more appealing than being faced with their entire member profile, which is a lot to slog through.
Mhm.
Love that idea.
Yeah, good idea.
So Jeff, it sounds like you had said you asked for profile updates kind of throughout, like during renewals or right before. So as somebody's renewing their profile.
When they log in to YM to renew and they're getting
Okay.
ready to pay, we ask them to review and update anything in their profile.
Okay. Cool. So that's through the website, it sounds. Who else had mentioned somebody else was going to speak to their timing, like when they ask. Mark, you had given a maybe as to having an profile update campaign, and I thought I saw somebody else.
We sent an email after renewal because we didn't want that
Okay.
hurdle in front of payment.
Mm,
Mhm.
that's interesting because then the other question, so I've always thought, Meredith, do you mail invoices as well? Or are you primarily doing like
We
email
try
and
to
digital?
avoid invoices as much as possible. We used to be on an invoice system, and the lack of follow up on those were a real pain. We're also kind of dual membership, like individual membership in companies. So we do invoice companies, but that's kind of a different situation.
Okay, got it. Who else? Anyone else have any comments on when they're One thing I was going to say is before renewals, oftentimes I've heard associations doing profile update campaigns a couple of months before renewals, just to make sure they have the right information for the ask, right? So when renewal time comes, then they have the updates, and as far as if you're doing mailed invoices, they have the updated address, updated emails, job title, whatever it may be. And for trade associations too, um, one of the big things that we see a lot of organizations do at the beginning is just asking, like, are you still the right point of contact for renewals, membership, whatever it may be? And that's been huge to help with, again, making sure you're getting the renewal message to the right person or any message to the right person.
You have a client's a trade association. Forget my voice, I'm getting over a cold. And they pull a report from their database of every member's profile that's been updated, and they contact all of the other ones and start a process of, if you've not updated your profile, the whole education piece of go here and do this and contact the right people and so forth. You disappeared, Brittany.
I know my camera. I lost my camera. Hold on. I'm still here, guys. I was
Okay,
hoping
good.
somebody else would jump in.
Well, I'll keep talking then whilst you're there.
Well, and so, yeah,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Kevin, if you have more to
No,
add.
it's a different topic, so I don't want to change the subject.
Okay, so before we jump to a new topic, is this working now? Hello. Turn it off and turn it back on again. Technology is like humans. Okay, my intern just told me that the mail-in is here. Oh, no worries, Jeff. So as far as again, timing goes, anyone else have feedback on when they're asking people to update their profiles? Or does anyone have like a condensed membership application? Is anyone testing that out so that they can ask new members to complete their profile later on? Cool.
I can add
Hearing?
some things that I think might be of value. This is Rachel Carter with the Golf
Sure.
Course Owners Association.
Hi, Rachel.
We don't do hike. Thanks for hosting today. I
Sure.
come from private clubs and membership-based organizations that are not associations. So this is my first trade association role, and in private organizations where we have membership, you know, I think we've done much better than what I've seen the association do as it relates to keeping information updated. And I actually still am profoundly sort of aligned with the value of a printed roster, which I know probably doesn't fly well in this group, but I feel like that helps keep things updated, because when people see information that's out of date, they tend to react differently than when it's just digital. But um, that may be a theory that could be challenged. But anyways, so I like that part. But we don't do a great job, I don't think, of asking them to update. We do have, and I think it comes out of Higher Logic and automated every 6 months, where it sends them like a digital membership card. And I think that that's kind of a trigger to get them to update their information if they see something and it's incorrect. So I think there's probably room for sure for automation in this process of encouraging people to go back and review their profile. We just recently transferred to Nimble, and personally, I don't think it seems very easy for the member to navigate for whatever reason, is sort of my initial impression from some of the feedback we've gotten. It could be how we've set it up. It could be Nimble. I'm not exactly sure. But accessing, I think there's a lot of room for an improvement at our association as it relates to accessing and using the member directory, and keeping their information up to date. The one thing I was going to add that I think is uh, something that has been valuable that we've done, and this does not relate directly to the members' contact information, but in the renewal process, we've created a form that says, because what we find at our trade association is the members don't even really know what value they're deriving from our membership. And so we use it as a way to remind them our system's not, and our processes aren't developed enough to be able to, like our sister organization in Canada, captures all of the engagement that the member participates in programs like buyer programs, purchasing programs, education programs, downloads, things like that. And they include that on their statement. We're not that sophisticated at our organization, so we can't do that on their statement. But what we do send is a separate document with their renewal statement. And it says, how can we better support you in the year ahead? Here's all the different member benefits. What's applicable or relevant to you right now? And the way that we've worded it, I think, is very creative. And they can basically go through and check off, whatever they want more information on, or want us to help broker an introduction for them to receive some savings or some benefits. And then they send that back. They can either scan it and email it back, or they actually put it in an envelope and send it back to the home office. And then we scan it and we have the appropriate membership director follow up with them. So that's also an opportunity. But I'll tell you the best way that we've been able to do now, granted, compared to a lot of you, we only really service, I'm going to say 1,200 memberships, but truly it's more like under 500 that we're actually calling and really servicing one-to-one that are not part of a chapter. And the best way I've found in the last 2 years to keep that member data up to date is by calling them. And while you have them on the phone, updating the roster, making sure that you've got the right points of contact, going deep, 2 to 3, 4 people at the organization. And if when you've got 1,000 or fewer, and you've got a couple people making 50 to 100 phone calls a week, you can get through your entire database easily in a half a year, if not a year. So that's kind of some of the things that we've been doing.
Phone calls aren't dead yet. Love it. Um, Chad, I don't know if that resonated with you as far as nimble and it being a little bit difficult for the members to navigate with the back end of things. But now you've got Rachel to lean on
Yeah,
if
that's
you guys
right.
have
Yeah.
questions. And Rachel, I don't know if you were here on the beginning of the call, but Chad had mentioned that they had just switched over to Nimble as well. So I'm interested. Do people want to put what AMS they're using in the chat? Just so people can kind of like see who's using what and be able to reach out to people. Again, use this as an opportunity to connect with some other folks if you're running into issues with systems that you're using or you have questions about how people are doing certain things in the database that they have. Would definitely encourage that. But so the second question, as far as timing goes, Chad, it's probably going to be one of those things where you test out when a good time to ask for profile updates is. I would say for new members, and I'm interested in hearing what other people think about this, but I would say new members, you probably want to lead with some type of value. I had talked about this on a panel the other day where once they join, they want to make sure that in order to reiterate that this was a good purchase decision, oftentimes it's best to, again, figure out what they joined for and then share resources relevant to that specific need or goal. And I think we can be quick to share courses or events or things that require additional purchases. But I would definitely encourage you guys to A, figure out what people are joining for, and then B, showing them those resources that are already a part of their membership so that they're not immediately like, I just paid for this membership. Now you're asking me to pay for more things that I want to do. Like, what are free courses that are relevant to the education that I'm looking for, or free events that are relevant to the networking that I'm looking to be a part of? So show value first and then check in, update some profiles once you've shown them essentially what is a part of the membership. So help them understand what they get with the membership in relation to their goals. And then later on down the road, double check that all the information they provided is correct, see if anything's been updated, etc. And if anyone feels differently, feel free to speak up.
Two things that
Uh,
we did, Brittany, as we're setting up the new one, this first onboarding. My membership person had a series of static emails that automatically went out. Or actually, she had four. And we looked at them and realized that some of what she's sending wasn't really fitting the prop fuel with, well, what's your highest thing? Because we immediately want to tell them, oh, you're also part of a region. Here's stuff about region. Here's how you navigate your profile. So we ended up staggering. So the prop fuel is going to be asking them what they're focusing on. But then she is still sending in between those a series of 3 emails with more general information, which again looked different and kind of covered different bases. The one other thing we did is that net promoter score question is when somebody rated us really highly, we added our membership referral bonus to that landing page. So when they gave us the really high score, it's like, hey, glad you love us. By the way, you can get a referral bonus.
Love it. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so one of the other questions that came up, Chad, you were asking how are you getting people to update their profiles? I think that's also a very good question because I'm assuming other people have the same. Is anyone doing anything special to get people to actually take the next step to update their profile? Are you offering any incentives? I think somebody had mentioned that they're offering, um, Mark, you had said that you offer 5 randomly selected comp memberships. That's kind of fun. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's easier to offer a product that doesn't truly carry a cost than it is to offer like gift cards and then have to track like who I need to send the gift cards out, purchase the gift cards, send them. So when it's a product within your own services that doesn't carry a cost, it just makes it easier. So we would put that in the content that we were, when we were advertising that we were looking for updated information, offer 5 complimentary memberships, and then randomly select them.
Did you see, how long have you done that? Like, did you just implement that this year?
No, we did that for several years. This was at my previous place. I actually only
Okay.
started at my current place about 3 weeks ago.
And
So
where are you at now?
I'm at the Post Acute Long Term Care Medical Association, AltMed.
Right. Awesome. I love association names. Association names and titles are so fun. It's always the longest thing. People are like, "Where do you work? And what do you do?" And I'm like, "How much time do you have?" All right. So you have individual members.
We do have individual members. We do
Cool.
offer group memberships, similar to what others were saying, but the memberships go to the individual.
Okay. Awesome. Anyone else doing anything in particular to incentivize actually updating profiles? Or is there anything somebody has seen that they want to do that they just haven't implemented yet? Cool. Meredith?
Yeah, it's not exactly an incentive, but our member directory is actually a pretty big benefit for most of our members. We're a professional organization, so a lot of people really want to be networking. So reminding them, especially the early and mid-career folks, reminding them that having accurate information in the directory helps other people find them is actually a really good driver for us. Depending on the structure of your organization and the kinds of members you have, that might not work, but it's been helpful to include that in our messaging.
Love it. Yeah, I think same goes for if you have any type of print piece. Like some medical associations will have like print journals that they mail out. I think reminding people like, hey, in order to continue receiving this benefit, which is a part of your membership, um, having the right information on file is going to get you this resource. So even just simple things without having it a direct incentive of here's a gift card, here's this, that, and the other. It's just a reminder of like to get the most out of your membership. This is something that will help you.
That's a
All right.
great tool. Sorry, this is Rachel Carter again. That's a great tool that I
Sure.
think worked for our trade association for years prior to COVID until they stopped printing our trade publication. I'd be curious of those on the call, how many, I don't know how you want to ask this, but like are printing versus are not printing a regular publication.
We print a scientific journal, but our newsletter is no longer printed.
The
Our
past
journal is
organization
digital.
my past organization is still print. I'm still in touch with a lot of those folks. My current, we don't have a journal. So, and we've actually completely stopped doing any kind of print mailings.
Have you noticed that impacting anything like renewals or
Nope.
engagement,
We're
anything of the sort?
probably doing better without it. We're not wasting the time and money on it.
All
I
right.
think there's a handful of our top donors who get a handwritten note in the mail, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I see. I am, call me old school. I still think there's some power to like print, but you can definitely be intentional about what you're printing, right? Um, I think so. Kendra, you had asked how people are. Um, what people are doing to see what members are joining for. So this kind of leans into that new member onboarding piece. However, it does also emphasize the importance of like having the right information in member profiles, like knowing what people are interested in, being able to tag them in certain ways so that you can identify what they're looking for, what's relevant to them, etc. So Meredith, you'd said that you ask in the application and it's part of follow-ups. What systems do you use for like the follow-ups? And is it just like the online application?
So we're in Neon CRM.
Okay.
The initial application is pretty long, like 3 or 4 page form. That's one of our final questions. It's very brief. Um, but then we have email campaigns that are tied to, 1 week after join, 1 month after join, that sort of thing. And we have separate forms set up that um, we ask a number of different things, like what committees are you interested in joining? And then the committee chairs get notified to reach out to the person or various things like that. So we get little bits of information um, at different times, and that's been strategic to not overwhelm folks. And then we check in, I think about once a year to ask, what their priority is or like what's most important to them about being part of the organization.
I like
Love it.
that. I like that because, like I said, we use personas, and so we can kind of identify what they may be doing, but some people may kind of do more than one thing. So to know specifically like what it is they possibly are looking for, that helps a lot. And we're on a new member journey, so that works.
Kendra, when you say you use personas, are you using like specific demographics to identify the personas or how are those built?
So it is a part of our application, and then we do also base it off like their designations. But in the member application, or even if they just create an account, we want to know like what their, how they are in their field. Like, is it
Hmm.
treatment or is it research, something like that.
Mm, okay, very cool. And what organization are you with?
The ACR, American College of Rheumatology.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we typically, so um, I'm going to speak to prop fuel because again, that's what I know. But I've also done this in like constant contact. This is stuff that you can do in other systems. It's just the ease of which you can do it varies based on system. But I would definitely recommend, again, I'm a huge advocate of just like asking the individual what they're looking for because even if they fill this demographic of like they're in this general age range, in this general um specialty, and in this general geographic area. Um, there's this image that shows um, two people that have same like demographical data, and at the end of it, it blacks out who the two people are. But it's like born in the same year, lived in the UK, owns a really big house, this, that, and the other. And at the end, it shows like it's Prince King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne. So it's like generally they look like very similar people, but they're going to have very different needs and wants because they're very different. So it all goes back to the importance of like asking the individual what they're really looking for. So prop fuel, we encourage people to do that at the beginning. That's the whole concept of the system is like ask your members a question and then automate the journey from there, show them what they're looking for. But again, you can do that in various ways too on your website. You can do it through emails. I, at a previous association, uh, um, tried setting it up through Constant Contact. It was just very manual, but still it's allowing you to get that data. So new member onboarding is big, but also I think it's important to remind people, like Meredith was saying, doing those check-ins throughout the year as well. So after someone renews, you can say, "Hey, this was an interest of yours last year. Is this still relevant? Is this still a goal of yours? Has this changed?" So like help us help you and help us cater our resources to you so that you're getting the most out of your membership. I'll sip off my soapbox now. I love membership topics. These are so fun. All right, what other questions do people have? Anything? We're talking profile updates, keeping data current. Where are people struggling? What are new things that you've tried that have worked? Anything in particular?
I'll just go ahead and ask a question if that's all right.
Yes, totally.
Um, I am at the point where I'm overwhelmed with options as to what routes we can go down and where we should put, how we should prioritize the needs of our members. We've heard loud and clear that there are about a handful of areas that we can refine, and we have the capability to do so with the new AMS and um, you know, now there's some energy in this space, but we can't do all at once. So I'm curious if there's anyone here that has found a great way to prioritize the area in which their group is going to focus to refine, part of the membership pathway.
If for us, that always depends on what our overall strategic goals are for the organization. So if we're seeing a drop in event attendance, it's, what questions do we have relative to that? Or if we're seeing, you know, um, if a donation campaign didn't go as well, we're going to focus on that segment of our audience. So it's always aligned to what issues we want to solve in the organization. I don't know, like, it's hard to say exactly what that's going to answer for you, but um, I think just kind of deciding what's going to get you the most ROI is always like that's the decider for me because we're a nonprofit and anything that's going to increase revenue is huge.
I'm going to concur with Meredith. First, if something's on fire, I hit that first. But then, so I've been with this group for 2 years, and for the longest time, it was we need new members, we need more students. And that was just their mantra. And then we quickly figured out we don't want students, we want new nurse practitioners. So you talk to them when they're students, but you really want more. I only want a student so that I can make sure they sign up as a first year nurse practitioner. And so we looked at what we were doing, and our first year NP discount wasn't really easy. We looked at our newsletter. We were only sending it to members. And I said, why aren't we sending it to all 16,000 people on our list? Let's get our message out. And then after we dug a little more, we realized it's not a new member issue. We're getting a ton of new members. Our retention rate was horrible. And we were losing, it's like the donor thing, because I came from the fundraising space. We're losing 30 to 40% of our first year members. So rather than chasing more first year people, let's try to keep them. And the one last thing is we're also now looking at membership based on where they are in their career cycle. Because otherwise, if everything you're doing is focusing on somebody new, then you're ignoring everybody who's been doing this stuff for a while. So you might be able to do 2 or 3 different things and make sure, well, we're addressing the hot issue. We're not ignoring retirees because we have some opportunities there. And the one last thing from my sales days is I always had something I could tackle within the next 30 days and then something else that's going to take longer. Otherwise, what happens is you eat lobster for one day and then mac and cheese for 3 months until you close that next round. So if I had prospects at all different stages of the cycle, I always had new business coming in, always had new conversions. I wasn't just focusing on tomorrow. So that takes your 6,000 things on your list and reduces it to 1,000, but at least that's less than there was before.
I would agree with both Meredith and Jeff on their approach. I know that at my previous org and at my current org right now, we have members that are missing data points, but they all vary. So not all members are missing things like their secondary email or their area of interest, which means that I can then go and send targeted sends to the whole group and focus on the ones that I need to have really specific messaging about secondary emails, and then focus on the ones about areas of interest. And I could do that at the same time, increasing the results and data back from them. And it makes it a little bit easier because I'm not sending the same message to everybody, only the people that I need it for. And it just makes it feel a little bit more personalized. Like if I got an email from my organization where I already gave them my primary and secondary email and they're following up on it, I'm kind of going to just like tune them out for a little bit because I know that they have it. But if I got an area where it's like, hey, help us cater your educational or our educational offerings to you, provide us your area of interest, and I haven't provided that, that's definitely an easy win for me to be like, yep, here's that data point. I feel like our members feel that way. Some of them are like, you have all this information on us. You don't need to ask me it. Ask me what you don't have and focus there. And I'll just help you build it. And we've started to do things where we push it out yearly and not just within our campaign, like a solid campaign for it. We also use different channels. So our join and renewal, but also any registrations for our annual event or our educational offerings. If we needed something like their job function, we made that a part of it because then they were always checking it or always providing it. So if they changed in the in between, we got that pretty quickly as opposed to waiting for a whole year cycle to go through. And it helped out a little bit. It takes a minute for all of that to actually work, but you do definitely reap the rewards of that.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
second that. We added fields to our event registration forms and not didn't make it too long, but that has been extremely helpful for us too.
All of this is super helpful. Brittany, you asked for like a list. It wouldn't fit in the chat. So, um, I'm just frugal at heart, despite how our CEO handles things. I'm also an advocate for like the middle manager or lower, right? Like the CEO is always like the one their voice is gonna be heard. But we're a trade association. Our big push is that we have benefits for CEOs to the shop floor. Well, the shop floor sometimes they don't even have a company email. So like they're not even in our system. But we do have offerings for them, which is great. But how do we get to them? That's a trick in itself. I'm more so looking at like, I just pulled up like the impact effort matrix, and I'm just thinking of like, to someone's point about like the member data, that itself is super valuable. And so we've got that. We're constantly cleaning it up. And yes, it does slowly become rewarding when you go, the following year to do like a company cleanup and the HR person is like, this looks great. You take off a couple people, add a couple people, and you're in good shape, which is wonderful. And that information we actually post in a directory behind our member wall. So that's part of our benefit, that directory that our members have. So we're always doing like the cleanups. But right now there are things that are low cost now that we have the very expensive new AMS. Just like small tweaks, and I want to be able to focus on those things within, let's say, our member map or directories. But I don't know really who to ask. Um, I don't want to send another survey out, and I want to get a good understanding. It's helpful though, just hearing you all speak. Like, what can you get done now is really important, and I think I've started to embed that in some of my requests, like to our IT team or our analytics team, where it's like I want like what can you do in the next 3 weeks? Like, I don't want this to be another giant overhaul. I don't want this, what could be a good return in a short amount of time. And then something I just saw in the chat about the internal. One note I want to make about that, I don't know, Lisa, the internal competition, as you stated. Something I've realized, I also am the, director of membership. And so that's the whole lifeline, onboarding to offboarding. And it does get really tricky. And just in the last year, also kind of wanted to like slap the hand of a colleague because she's in the chapter space and she's really energetic. And she was talking to someone like they were our member. And I'm like, whoa, 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 like they're not a current member. We shouldn't be engaging with them like this. And I'm a worrywart and like, conservative leaning. Like I get very nervous about risk. And then I realized I had to pause and step back. I'm like, this actually is good. Like it may have been a huge red flag to me, but it's not like my colleague was writing a check to that person, you know, or like giving them access to our member database or something that was like irreversible. She actually was selling us. And so I had to take a different position. And it seemed like competition at first. But when I really stepped back, I looked at like she's highlighting the benefits of our organization or association. And it really has helped me like look at things like that, those experiences through a new lens. So I don't know if that's helpful, but it's not always like as risky as it may come across. Like you stated, they were being offered like sponsorships or whatever it was. Of course, my SOP centric self would be like, that's supposed to happen after we close the deal. But if you look at it, it's like it might actually be a selling point for this group. So just some food for thought.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. It is tricky. So I try to push that membership comes first and then all those other benefits come afterwards. And we do have discounts for members versus non-member rates. So it should be an incentive, but everybody doesn't always push the membership side before they're pushing their own product that they're responsible for. So my battle is just trying to be a good team player, and all dollars are good dollars, and it benefits the organization overall. So just have to kind of keep that perspective, but it does get a little frustrating.
Were you going to add something, Meredith?
Yeah, and I was like trying to think through exactly how I was going to phrase this because Lisa made me think of something. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of similar. So we've noticed, and I'm not sure with the kind of offerings you have, Lisa, if this is relevant, but we've noticed that sometimes it's really helpful for someone to engage with us first before they're willing to invest in membership. So we actually get conversion on events. We sometimes get conversion on educational programs or some of our longer term programs. And so we kind of have to be strategic about it because I agree, like you don't want to overwhelm somebody with like 3 different asks at the same time. But I think with some coordination, we've found it's really helpful. Like if we're not converting a member, maybe it's because they need to come to one of our events and like experience what we have to offer. And maybe they'll pay the non-member rate, but then we get them in the door and we get them into our network. We may be a different sort of organization, but that was just kind of like a way that we've talked about it among our team.
Yeah, no, that is helpful, Meredith. We have done that on occasion where we've offered somebody a free registration to a program or something. Yeah, so they can get in and kind of feel around and meet people and see the value of it. So no, that's a great, great plan. And you're right, you need to use it strategically. You can't use it all the time, but it definitely helps. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I feel your pain though, trying like we have the same issue of like asking people for too many things at one time. So
Yes.
hang in there.
Yes. I just want to get them as a member first, and then everything else afterwards. But you're right. It always isn't coordinated the way the membership roles see fit.
Right, I'd asked this in the chat. I don't know if everyone had seen it. I know Meredith, you responded, but Beth, it sounds like one of the core issues is being a trade association and you're struggling with reaching additional staff of the member organizations to show them that they have some benefits too. Is that one of the items on the list? Okay.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
goes back to like the profile updates too. So how are you updating member organization profiles to know who the staff members are so that they also know that they have access to all the benefits that you offer? For those of you with trade associations, or even if you were at a trade association in a previous life, do you guys are you facing the same issues? Is there anything you've done to solve that problem? Still one that's out in the open?
We're in finance and it's so highly regulated. We hit a lot of roadblocks with companies not wanting to share data with us. So
Mm.
it's it has to be a lot of customized outreach for us, and there just doesn't seem to be a good way around it.
Mhm.
Wondering.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
please, Beth.
Well, as you were saying that, I was also thinking of like I'm selfishly just thinking of like CEO to shop floor and how it could be looked at maybe in like different buckets because it shockingly, it's not just like them getting in. It does actually come down to them saying, like, we don't want you to have a certain set of info on every single person. So maybe it is a different approach and it's more like levels of detail that you are asking for. Because, like, I even look at our AMS currently and it's phone numbers are in there. And yes, phone calls are still very valuable. I'm not going to deny that, but it's just a generic phone number listed for like 50 people in some of these companies. And I'm like, so that's just the main line. So that's a pointless data point. Why do I even have it in here? So maybe I do start to position it a little bit differently, even in my initial onboarding. Like, we would like, you have three different groups. You've got groups that are going to be able to, you're going to invest in, right? They're going to pay for additional knowledge and learning or a conference, or a unique custom program or some of our expensive reports. That's one bucket, somebody that you're going to kind of invest more dollars in. Then you've got a middle manager bucket that they're kind of on the road up to upper management that you still want them to see the offerings that we have that might be costly or take more of their time out of their day, but you're willing to let them see those. And then the third bucket would be these ones, we only want them to see the built-in benefits, right? Like we don't have the funds to give additional investment for this third bucket, but anything built in or anything regional that's really low in cost. So yeah, that I just thought of that as we were talking. I don't know if that's like something I can even do, but that might be good.
I was just going to raise one point that we've encountered with trade associations in trying to get their a greater number of contacts, for example, at or staff at a trade association, which is privacy. Um, Sometimes staff at a certain company don't want people to be able to know that they work there. And so there has to be a little bit of sensitivity, sort of like a double opt-in around that, so that you have a primary contact at the company who can add them and say, yes, Fred works here. This is their title. But then Fred might need the option to say, actually, I don't want to be shown here. And there's some history around that with people going through nasty divorces and other people discovering that they actually work at this place with X salary, and that changes the whole
Ooh.
picture. So that's just one specific example of why the privacy matters so much. But not to create an obstacle, but it is something to consider.
Yeah, we've had to deal with that with our member directory, and it's definitely we receive the information, but before we let them be public in our directory, they opt in. Um, and not so much for, I mean, that's a horrible situation, but even for, people who are on the job market and want to be a little quiet about it or those sorts of things. So we definitely have that, we'll collect it and then we'll reach out and ask them, do you want to be part of this?
All right, everyone, being mindful of time. I always like to ask before we close up, what would you like to talk about next month? You can hop off mute and throw out a couple of ideas, or you can drop some ideas in the chat.
I have
Kendra?
something. I have
Yeah.
something. So in my organization, we have if you're a member, you're a part of the entire college, but it is broken down into two separate ones. Like we have one for physicians and then one for the interprofessionals. So I am over that part. My question is, it's not specific to necessarily new members or onboarding, but still speaking to the members. We have a newsletter that goes out about every quarter, but we just don't see any movement on it, I guess. And so we've been thinking of ways to kind of change it up and just wondering because it only goes out to members, maybe how we can get that moving or just different ideas. How are you guys staying engaged with your members through things like newsletters? That's not necessarily a renewal or needing something done.
We have a newsletter that's actually weekly, which sometimes feels like a bit much. Um, but we've shifted that away from calling it a member benefit because I think, there was a time where I've worked with organizations that are relatively old. And so there's always somebody on staff who's like, oh, but that's a member benefit. And we've always mailed that only to members, which is, maybe accurate in the 90s, but hi, 30 years later, communications are how you stay engaged and keep your organization front of mind. So, opening that up and making sure that we have some interesting messaging going out. I think once a week is too much. That's a conversation I'm having with my team, but more than quarterly, just to keep things front of mind, I think is really, really helpful.
We send ours monthly. We've got an open rate averaging about 65% and a double-digit click-through rate. It's short. It's quick. We've got little colored icons that break up the section, so you can browse it really quickly, and then you can click to read more. We took it from 2,500 members to 16,500 on the email list, maintained the open rate, and then I hired a company to sell ads. And so we're getting about 5 or 6 grand a year in income. And of course, they love the bigger number. And what better way to tell your non-members what you're missing than let them see what your group is doing?
Yeah, we do a
I
very
like that.
similar.
Yes,
We
I like that.
Yeah, we send it to non-members a monthly, I think, mailing. And it's a few of the links might take you behind the member wall. And so they get stopped. And yeah, it's just a good advertisement.
That was the question I was going to ask Jeff. Do the links all go behind the member wall, or some of them?
Some do, some don't. We're in healthcare, so we put some stuff out about, the state will send us something about vaccines. We send that to everyone. So a lot of it is public, and then a few go behind the wall and they hit the same thing. Well, you got to be a member to get it. And not that that one thing is going to make them go, but there's kind of a balance of both. Kendra, one thing you might want to think about, although it's a little more work, is slightly tweaking the newsletter for your audience. A lifetime ago, I was sending a fundraising appeal, and we were a youth and family service place that had campuses about 30 miles apart. And I did a campaign and did not get what I expected. And so I did the bizarre thing and spoke to a few donors, and they said, well, I love what you're doing up north, but I don't care. So then the next appeal had about 50% common content and a little bit different for the people up north than south. And I got double the response. So because if your thing is all about physicians, nobody else wants to hear about physicians. And if you're talking to techs, well, then the doctor's like, well, I could ignore this because I'm not a nurse practitioner. I'm not a PA. They're beneath me. If you tweak the content a little bit for both, you might have a better open rate.
That's actually the dynamic content has been in the forefront right now. That's how we're trying to kind of do that. And so like for the physicians, they have, great engagement with this newsletter. They get it monthly as well, if not weekly. I can't remember, I'm sorry. But ours goes out every 3 months. And the group is a lot less than, the physician piece of it. So just trying to keep them engaged and also not make them feel so siloed. So I think the dynamic content, like you mentioned, will definitely help.
Who makes up this membership, Kendra?
So it is like well, it's called AR, they are ARP members, Association of Rheumatology Professionals. And so these are APPs, your office coordinators,
Okay,
anybody who doesn't hold MD, pretty much,
got it.
designation.
Okay. That's interesting. Maybe we can I would love to talk about this a little bit more too. So one of
I
the
would
associations I
love to
was
talk
at
about
was
this more.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of the associations I was at was American Academy of Sleep Medicine. So we had a general membership, like the regular membership was for physicians, and then we had affiliate membership, so to speak, for anyone without an MD. And so yeah, you definitely have to and want to engage with that audience in a different way. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
like, okay, so how can we provide benefit for them? So I like that. We can add that to the list of topic ideas for next month too. And I'm always happy to chat if anyone wants to touch base and talk about a topic in between this month and next month, always happy to connect and get another group of people together. So, Kendra, if this is a hot topic for you and you want to get some people together, we can throw something out there and see if anyone wants to join. Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Yeah.